Welcome everybody to a Delco Nerd Network Hot Take. Guys, if you haven't seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement. We give our thoughts, we give our opinions on a TV show, a movie, or a game. Today, it's going to be a game, and that game is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Here to discuss, as always, the triple threat, DNN second in command, Chris Trio.
Hi, Ragucci. How are you?
Hi. Doing well.
I love to hear it, my friend.
And of course, my name is Anthony Ragucci, but in the middle, returning guest, Delaware County's own Nintendo expert, Chris Connor, back in the sack.
It's dangerous to go alone. That's why I came.
That's what we like to say.
Welcome back.
The third to our Triforce, you might say.
Oh, yeah.
Of Zelda
You've been.
content.
This is definitely your most appearances in a year. So
Probably, yeah.
yeah. You've been on we had the Crisis Core, the Mario movie, and now we're here.
That's so true. Wow.
I mean, I was somewhere else, but you said you didn't want to have anyone like say, "Oh, I know him."
Oh, yeah, true. You were on the Too Many Games panel. You were there. Yeah. Well, we are finally doing a Nintendo review. We're fucking here.
It's the first one.
Probably, yeah.
I think so.
I think it is.
This is the first Switch game we've ever reviewed.
It's true. That's
It's
actually weird.
Really strange, but like, kind of makes sense. The really, like, Nintendo isn't chunking out their first party big IPs like all that often.
That's very true.
And and I know you aren't playing like, I don't know if you play Kirby's like Forgotten World.
I
like,
do.
Yeah,
like you did, but it's just like, yeah, right. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what, Trio, when are we going to review Kirby's Forgotten World?
Maybe
you know?
when I get to it, who knows? I know
why not?
Metroid Prime. that would be maybe a fun one to do. The remaster.
Whenever that, the
Or
remaster.
the remaster.
Or
That was
whenever
Metroid
4
Prime,
comes out.
right? The
Yeah.
new one that they.
Oh, you're
the
thinking of
remaster.
Dread, maybe.
Whichever one they just put out pretty recently.
Remaster
the
of 1.
remaster.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. But that one I'd like to play. There are a few games I'd love to play on Switch. It's definitely been my Zelda machine.
Yeah,
That's
so
for sure.
like we are trying to make some strives and initiatives in doing some more Switch reviews. I think
Absolutely.
it's just like, it's just kind of like they come around like every so often, not as much as like, our third party games or,
Especially
like our first
because
parties on
Nintendo
Sony.
just feels like they're focusing so much on trying to go with all the retro. You'd rarely try and see any of the new stuff. We could do plenty of rewind reviews, but we want to focus on what's new, what's going on.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only other really like Nintendo like first party games that I would really be interested in playing are like Mario games maybe and stuff like that, or even
How do you
like
review a Mario Party game,
well, that's what I mean. And even like we could do
How do
Mario.
you do?
We could do Mario Odyssey if we wanted to, but
You
that's
don't
like
rage
again
quit.
like
That's-
we need a new one.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And if there were a new Mario, we'd probably cover that for sure.
Yeah.
Soon.
So disclaimer, I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom. Trio and Chris have, so they're gonna be kind of taking the main roles and the opinions here. I'll be asking questions, being curious, shitting on Nintendo, wherever I can.
Ah.
But Trio, let's start with you, man. Let's get you back in the sack. What did you think of Tears of the Kingdom? Obviously, it's a Game of the Year contender. Is it your Game of the Year? Where are you sitting on it?
I think I understand why it's a Game of the Year contender for a lot of people. For me, it's not. I really enjoyed it. I think there are a lot of cool new mechanics introduced. I do find myself kind of, not annoyed, but sad. I'm kind of running through some of the same areas over and over, or not over and over again, but one more time again.
I mean, I can understand that. Like, that's what I heard a lot of people say. Like, some people complain that it's too similar. Some people like that similar. I mean, this is the first time in a long time that we have had a legit sequel to
No,
one of these
absolutely.
games, so.
And it's a direct sequel, and I understand what comes with that. And I think that's totally fair. And it's like, what do you create a whole new Hyrule Kingdom?
and it was all but confirmed, right? This originally was DLC, correct?
People, that's what people think it should have been. That's what I've heard some people say. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be DLC, but
And is the map? Sorry, I'm kind of cutting in.
No,
here.
you're okay.
Is the map 1-to-1?
For the most part, yes.
Some
I would-
changes.
Really?
There's some changes because what happens in the beginning, story-wise, is this like upheaval, right? I
the
is what-
upheaval, pretty
and-
much. Link and Zelda, they notice something weird's coming from beneath the castle. They investigate. They discover these tombs that describe this conflict called the Imprisoning War.
Yeah.
And they find this corpse there that knows them, apparently.
It's weird, mummy man.
The corpse suddenly attacks them. Link loses literally all his health, all his power.
Yeah.
And the Master
Cool
Sword,
moment where the hearts all go down. Yeah.
and
I've
the
seen
Master
intro.
Sword shatters. His arm gets corrupted. Next thing you know, he's trying to save Zelda, who falls into a pit, and she just disappears in a spot of light.
I love how Zelda lore dumps on Link, and Link's just like,
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
That is one of the funniest things about this game with Link is that they do just commit to, like, he talks to people. You just don't hear him
you
talk.
don't get that,
lore
yeah.
that he's
Yeah.
like, he has PTSD, so he doesn't talk? Is that correct?
But he's speaking to people. They're under, like, you just don't hear him.
He's just always been kind of mute, and we do not
Right.
talk about the CDI games.
Was he talking in that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
What's a CDI game? I don't even know what that
An
is.
old system, very bad Zelda
Oh,
games.
like that cartoon
Yeah.
looking one? Okay, yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
So what this upheaval then causes is like big earth-shattering event, which reveals the Underdark, not the Underdark,
Depths.
the depths, and also the Underdark. What is that from D&D?
D&D, yeah.
And also it reveals for some reason these cloud
Yeah,
platforms
the
and things like
upheaval,
that.
like everything got shifted. Like the castle, Hyrule Castle, rose up into the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Probably wouldn't be the first time Nintendo's done this, but it also opened the way to the depths. Pretty much an entire map, the entire size of the original map, and meanwhile up
That is
top
below
you
it,
have
yeah.
a few sky islands appearing.
So
Yeah.
I guess you can kind of see where their efforts were kind of put towards.
For
It's like,
sure.
okay, we're reusing the same map. Interesting choice, but we're
gonna
making-
expand upon that.
Right. We're expanding upon it,
And
like,
they do shift some areas and such like that because, like he said, things
Right,
literally
things have
rise.
changed,
And
right,
yeah,
right.
but there are places that are, I'm sure, one-to-one. Almost
Some
exactly.
places, yeah, like some, like you probably have some buildings that are different. You probably have some landmarks or just terraform that have just been altered in some way
Sure,
because
yeah.
some stuff is literally fallen from the sky.
Most of the stables are in the same spot. A lot of there's like a new town in the center by where Hyrule was, like down
the
below.
lookout, the lookout landing.
Yeah,
it's
something-
pretty much your base once you finally get off the tutorial island, which is pretty much the same exact situation that they had with Breath of the Wild. You start off in this isolated area. You got to complete a couple of trials in order to
Few
get an,
shrines.
get an understanding of what you need to try to accomplish or what sort of special game mechanics they are, and eventually the world's just open to you.
Yeah, and they give you these 4 new powers, so they get rid of the ones that you had in the last game. One of them is the hand, which just allows you to grab
is this
things.
the shit?
The
where
Ultra
you're-
Hand, where you
Oh yeah, so you
you're
get rid of the
gluing shit
Sheikah
together.
slab. You
Yeah,
now have Raru's arm, which
Yeah, I
which
know,
allows
yeah.
you to like I guess harness all these secret stone powers or,
can
or harness all the powers.
Use the secret stone powers. You can build stuff. You can do all that type of stuff. And the big thing also is instead of the Sheikah Slate, it's the Pura Pad. We pretty much have all of them on there, as well as the map and everything else you're going to
Do
get.
they
So the Sheikah Slate was a Wii U, right?
Yeah, well no, it was
It
like
was in-
it
it was
was
in
a
both.
Switch. It was a Switch basically.
Okay, is the Purapad a Switch?
No, they're both Switches.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, they're but I mean it's literally the same thing. But
I'm like,
they just
why'd they change the
They
name?
don't really. Do they explain where all the Pura technology, the Pura Pad stuff goes?
I mean,
and
she
stuff?
invents it.
I mean, that's the one.
No, I
thing-
know, but it just like disappears between games.
All the Sheikah technology just
That's
suddenly
it, the Sheikah
disappears.
stuff,
So
yeah.
that's definitely one thing. Like all the
okay.
stuff that was key to plot devices, the divine beasts, all the guardians that were going after you. Like,
Yeah.
that's all just gone.
and they
so-
just don't even talk about
So
it.
the Sheikah stuff was like those monsters.
The guardians, that sort of the
Your
laser
tablet,
beam-
a lot of the technology that you used, all of the
shrines.
powers that you used were all Sheikah technology, and they were all powered through the
Interesting.
thing, and they just completely
Right, yeah, I
It's
know
just
about
gone.
Raru
Yeah.
and his wife,
Sonya.
and I know they're like the first king and queen of Hyrule.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to Zelda lore, that's definitely something new and something interesting. Like Zelda lore, I feel like when it comes to this new era with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it could be its own thing. Like everyone talks about the time split after Ocarina of Time, 3 different timelines.
Right, I definitely have some questions.
And people are still questioning exactly where these 2 games are supposed to take place. And it's just an interesting sort of topic.
We got a little off track. Is there anything else big point you wanted to say?
No,
before
I
we-
just think overall, man, it's a lot of fun. You can sink a lot of hours into this,
Yeah,
and I think
clearly.
a lot of the new mechanics are cool and interesting, and it's so like mind-boggling. I think how differently you can kind of just force puzzles too.
Yeah.
Like I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
people, and I like it.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't break.
It doesn't seem, yeah, like I heard a lot of people talking about that there doesn't seem to be like one way to solve a puzzle, which is interesting because I think the developers are kind of giving the players the creative freedom to kind of play how they want.
There was one Gooch. I was sitting there for like 45 minutes where I'm like, I just don't get it. And it's like a rail that you had to like build this weird kind of wall
Oh yeah,
vehicle around that would like go off of 2 rails, then onto 1 rail,
Yeah.
and then you'd go around. And I'm like, man,
It's like
I
a
have
roller coaster.
It's tough, and there were a few. I mean, you know me; I'm not shy about looking up puzzle things. I need to sometimes, or else I'm just gonna get stuck and annoyed.
I watched only a few of those. I've actually just trying to figure them out. It's all about using the certain types of technologies he was talking about. So you got the Ultra Hand, which is pretty much your grab and put it anywhere. You got the rewind function. You can rewind literally anything that's moving, whether it be rocks falling from the sky.
Which you can use like very interestingly. I gotta admit, you can like pick up something and like put it down in the air and then rewind it and get on top of it to get you up to places.
Yeah.
And the big thing too about also is I can't remember if it's the combined feature. Pretty much when it comes to weapons in this game, the weapons aren't in pristine like they were in Breath of the Wild. You have to find them. They're pretty much damaged, torn, and you have to find monster parts, which I feel was a very interesting take, and combine them together to make them stronger.
So that's one of the power. It's the fuse thing. So you can fuse, like that allows you to create things like fuse things together to make vehicles and things like that. It also allows, so that's the hand that allows you to do that. But this weapon fusion thing he's talking about, it allows you to take things in the environment.
You put like weapons on shields.
Yeah, the shield. It's funny, and I didn't even know you could shield surf in the last game, and I was using that a lot this game. But you can combine things in a lot of different ways. Like it does make it so. I didn't find that weapon degradation as nearly as annoying
I didn't hear a lot
as I
of
did in
people
the first
talking
game.
about it. Maybe because it was just old news.
Well, I think they did. Would I have preferred that they just didn't degrade like
Didn't
that?
do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But do I think that this is a good step in like allowing you to really keep things going? Because like you'll have a sword that's like 10 damage, and you have all of these like Stalnox horns or whatever in your inventory, and it sorts them by what attack power they are and stuff like that.
Strength, rarity.
Exactly. So they will. You can combine it with that, and it'll up your sword by 40 or something like that.
I mean, like, it depends on what sort of monsters that you take down. Like
More powerful monsters.
If you like to take down boss creatures, and they will have either stuff you can pick up or even stuff left behind, like the taluses. They leave behind hearts that you can't pick up. Just combine them, it becomes a hammer.
When I was watching it at Trios, I did kind of think there. I'm like, damn, you are picking up a lot of shit. Like, do you feel like the inventory and like, I guess the crafting systems are kind of overwhelming, or did it like make sense?
You know what fucks with me, Gooch? The fucking buttons. It says drop with X.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
pressing A. Because they're all fucking a different thing on the Switch controller.
Yeah.
That's really what fucks with me the most. But I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Now, the thing about that is, too, like, when it comes to these sort of weapons customizations, like, people used to complain all the time, like, these weapons, they'll just be destroyed too easily, like in Breath of the Wild. But then now you have this system where you can pretty much try and extend the life with certain types of sort of weapons. It's only for melee and shields, of course, like...
Yeah.
Also, another thing about that, too, is you have to do it in order to just mess with your arrows. Like, back in Breath of the Wild, you'd have all these different types of arrows, regular, ice, fire, but now you have to combine certain monster parts in order to make them a certain element.
And I will say, it's very intuitive. Like, you're holding right trigger, and you press up on the D-pad, and then you scroll to whatever you'd like to combine with it. And it does make it pretty easy and simple to do during a fight and stuff like that. I did find it to be a little overwhelming at some points, especially, like, when you're trying to find certain things in the scrolling menu. I just am like, all right, I gotta just go to the main menu and like pause.
I'm fucking lost.
Because it's just like you can sort it by, like you said, strength, rarity, and then one other thing.
Like
but certain
what's
things will
most
always,
used.
Yeah, and certain things will always just be
and it's
really
it's
far
that
down
like
the line.
Destiny menu that like every game seems to use, where like
I mean, it's the same one as Breath of the Wild used.
Yeah,
Literally,
exactly.
I mean, which would still line up with that comment, but yeah, I feel like menus and stuff in games when it's inventory based, like Gotham Knights does this. I've been playing that a little bit recently again for some achievements, but I'm like, dude, this menu system sucks.
It's really bad.
Like I'm just like, you know, like the pictures of the gear. I'm like, they need a better way to do inventory screens. I hope Starfield doesn't fall to that, and like, you know, they kind of. And not that Skyrim's fucking inventory menu was good. I think it was like pretty classically like hampered on by people, especially on PC. Like it wasn't that intuitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I do feel the inventory is also much better when actually using parts. Like when you collect stuff back in Breath of the Wild, you just collect them and you either sell them for rupees or sell them for this other sort of weird currency that was only in that game. So I feel like definitely.
So
make
there's
use
more
of everything.
uses for what you're picking up.
Definitely,
you're not just picking shit up and sell. It's not
absolutely.
losing.
Yeah.
Anything else before we get to Chris?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. If you like Zelda stuff, pick it up. You're going to be playing it forever. That's all.
But not game
in
of
a
the
bad
year.
way. Not my game of the year, just because like, you know what my game of the year so far is, Gooch? I
Hogwarts
think
Legacy. No.
it's Dead Space. I want to replay it.
I don't want that.
I know it can't be. It's not going to be.
Yeah, I
but
don't think
that's
it's
like
gonna be.
like that has been my favorite experience of the
I mean,
year so
I
far.
think right now, just to kind of tangent real quick, I think we're looking at Hogwarts Legacy,
Absolutely.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom, and Final Fantasy 16 as like the three. Starfield will be in there as well. And I think it's going to be a pretty interesting race.
Like, I guess
gonna be
I don't feel like
competition.
this is so insanely different from Breath of the Wild as to warrant. It
Right.
reminds me of God of War Ragnarok. That was a good, amazing game. But did it deserve Game of the Year? No, the first one did because it was so. it was so
It was
great,
fresh.
and it was fresh, and it did all those new things first.
When we were reviewing Horizon with Penza, like that was just one thing I kept saying. I was like, okay, it's just more Horizon. We've seen this before.
Yeah.
This isn't innovative.
Which isn't a bad thing. That could,
right. It's a
necessarily.
sequel. It's
Yeah.
a true sequel. But like again, like when you're going up in the Game of the Year, like Final Fantasy 15 and 16 are like they have similarities, but
For
they're
sure.
really not the same game at all.
Yeah,
Whereas
and-
it's like like Tears of the Breath of the Wild was the Zelda game that you know,
Redefined.
right, redefined it, and then I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is. It's redefining it again. I must say,
But
but
it's very, very similar.
I was gonna
Right.
say, like, I guess some people would then argue, like, the building thing is such a new thing,
Right, like-
and certain new mechanics are so big and different that you might be able to jump
it
over
might
that.
edge it out, right?
And I guess I can kind of give you that. I can understand
Right.
that. And the building of all the machines and stuff. Did you use Auto Builder a lot?
I used it on a few occasions when it comes to stuff I
Yeah.
saved mostly.
Yeah, I didn't use it a
Did you
ton.
build a deck or two?
No, I didn't build a dick rocket. I was thinking about it,
or like a Gundam.
or like burn a
By the way,
Korok
there
at
is a
the
dark
stake.
side to this creation stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I love the Koroks being crucified.
There were so many
I was
good
like,
memes.
this
it was
is
great.
hysterical.
They're just kids.
and that's like a moment where I think like Elden Ring also kind of did the same thing, where like there was this like zeitgeist moment
For
where
sure.
like I think like everyone was just kind of sharing what they were doing or things they were finding or like memes and like like the like the big guys with dicks like
Yeah.
blasting off or like like someone like carting a Korok on like a crucifix
Or like
what
a
is
man
it?
on fire that's like spraying fire and he has a huge like rocket penis or something.
I mean,
Yeah, like-
unfortunately, Nintendo has. This isn't the first time it's happened. Like it's happened with
we cannot
Pokemon.
I'm
condone
sure
that.
there was some play testing where they're like,
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
like,
gonna
there's
get
no
crazy.
way they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't like think about.
Well,
this.
and I think that the way they rated it was like because since it's all user generated
Is it-
content, they
is
can
it
still
E10?
rate it E10, yeah, or something like that.
I mean,
Why
which
not?
is so funny.
Right.
No, yeah. Oh my gosh.
so Chris, let's go to you, man. What'd you think of Tears of the Kingdom? Is your game of the year?
I would say it's definitely a good contender for Game of the Year, but similar to what Trio said, it would definitely be difficult considering it's not necessarily fresh. It's a sequel. It's not the same situation as Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, where you have a whole new area, you have whole new mechanics that completely change it while having stuff from the original.
Right.
I do feel that it will have an identity of its own, but it has the sequel curse. Like what you were talking about, like I think of Banjo-Tooie, like when people think of that game, they think, oh, is the original's better, or oh, it's much greater. It's literally just a continuation from the original. There's always going to be a divide in that sort of argument.
Yeah, it's funny to go back to the Majora's Mask conversation because that's the only other time that Nintendo really reused assets and made a sequel. I mean, like Majora's Mask really isn't a sequel to Ocarina of Time. Like I guess it is in a sense.
It's the same link. It takes place after the events, but the thing
right.
is,
It's nothing to do with what's
it
going
is
on before.
whole new area,
Right,
whole
whole
new
new
mechanics,
story.
and literally
That makes
they
sense.
they like had to rush development when it came to doing that.
Right, but again, like a total big asset reuse, right?
Yeah.
It's like the same shit being reused. So it's interesting to see them kind of do it again. And I think at the end of the podcast conversation will be like, what are they going to do next with Legend
this,
of Zelda?
yeah.
Because I'm like, I think we've had a few conversations on Discord. I'm like, well, they can't. I don't think they can just do it again. Like they did it. They did it once.
They never really done it 3 times in a
Right.
row. So.
It's like, are they gonna like do something different by being like, okay, we're making another sequel
So
to
how
Breath of the
many?
Wild.
How many? Is every Zelda usually fighting Ganondorf?
Majority are the
Not
like-
Majora's Mask.
Not Majora's Mask. Okay.
there are some rare occasions where it's a whole new different antagonist, and that's
Okay.
usually outside of Hyrule.
Sure.
It just depends on where it's going
Interesting.
or what
Okay.
sort of hardware it's on.
Yeah, because even I guess the last one is like it's Calamity Ganon, right, or something. It's like what like so
This-
how does
just-
that connect to this?
Just
I don't,
this
like,
manifestation of Ganon, or even maybe even Ganondorf. It's not confirmed whether or not
Gotcha.
not the Ganondorf that was shown in Tears of the Kingdom is
Yeah.
the source of the calamity, because they even go on to say like they relabel it as damn, what's the word? Not misery. whatever the heck those
Gloom?
tools are called. Gloom. Yeah, instead of Malice, which was how it was in Breath of the Wild. Like it's a whole new type of mechanic, that
The
sort of thing.
gloom is like that black infection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so how that mechanic works is like if you stay on that too long, it'll break down your hearts, so
like
you
permanently
can't,
break it until you like make
get
your
in the
way to
light.
the top or onto a light.
Okay, so it's kind of like a Dark Souls. If you die and lose your humanity, you're like capped.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So I love the conversation. Before we get lost in the sauce, any other big points you want to make before we just start really talking?
I do find
Not
it
that
really,
we haven't done that, but
I do find it really interesting that they did try and make it more like user sort of trying to solve it. They kind of did the same thing with Breath of the Wild, but now it's much more expanded upon, trying to create your own sort of stuff. I literally think of back in the days of Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, where you had to make these sorts of vehicles, all this stuff to complete challenges. Meanwhile, for this is more or less. You can do it that way. It doesn't have to be that way, but it definitely makes it easier.
right.
Choice is king here. I will give them like the way you can attack everything is wild.
Yeah, I just talking about the combat. One of the things I noticed is like I feel like they kind of, and I know this is what everyone likes to do with games nowadays. It kind of feel like the way the combat looks, and I guess the way he's carrying his weapons. I'm like, this almost looks like Dark Souls because he's got this big bulbous fucking like whack-a-mole fucking mallet on his back, and he looks ridiculous, and like also his clothes are ridiculous.
No, I hear you.
Like
Depends on what you can give him.
I'm like, it seems like they kind of like tapped into that aesthetic.
I would say aesthetically, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
maybe not with the combat.
Feelings wise, no, I don't think it feels like a Dark Souls like type of combat.
Right.
But yeah, with those like huge weapons that like
Right. You shouldn't
almost
be-
comically large. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
I think
right.
absolutely.
You can run
for
around
sure.
naked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's only a few games that I feel like have harnessed that Dark Souls aesthetic within like essentially just your equipment.
For sure.
And yeah, the armor system is exactly the same as Breath of the Wild. You find pieces of armor, you upgrade it with a great fairy, that sort of thing, but you need materials.
You're welcome. Sorry. You continue.
Flashbacks.
Yeah. No, so it's funny. I didn't find those until like 2 days before I thought I was done this game. We won't get into it. And then like it kind of goes a whole nother route. But yeah, the Great Fairies I finally found. I got 2 of them. I don't think I finished the last 2.
I can't look at you right now.
They help out a lot with the armor, like for sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't find a ton of it, but
And your armor gives you special perks. What's the
like say maybe if you have a set, then you'll have like
Resistances and-
increased attack. Like for instance, like
the barbarian armor.
Barbarian
is increased
armor.
attack.
It's a lot of like some new stuff, a bunch of old stuff, like stuff from past in the series, some past from Breath of the Wild, like
Yeah.
the Fierce Deity costume. I got that. I've been using that a lot.
You get the Twilight Princess Link outfits.
So
and
yeah,
stuff.
I know you get a lot of like past Zelda
Yeah.
sets. So is it more like Legend of Fashion, Tears of the runway?
Sure.
Like
I
do
would
you,
agree, yeah.
Is armor really like I just want to look cool.
It's
I don't
fun.
care
No, I mean
what
it
does.
definitely affects what like your armor
Legend
rating.
of-
Like so, each one has a certain amount. On
Much
it.
more endurance, much more defense. Like you really have to try and mix or match when it comes
Right,
to
so
certain
armor
enemies.
is sort of necessary.
Yeah,
You can't just
and you
fuck
need all
around.
3 pieces of the armor to make it have its full effect.
Like
Right.
So you
but do
need-
you get like okay? If I have the hat, I get my 1. If
Yeah,
I have
so
the
there's,
armor,
like-
I get 2.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's like notches on the side.
Right.
And certain things you only need 2 sets of the armor. Other things you need all 3.
like
which
stuff
is
like that
interesting.
gives you increase in swimming or heat resistance, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Because some-
they're cool.
Because some environments you definitely need that. Like you're going in volcanic caves, stuff like that. You need the fireproof armor, all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
So let's talk about performance. I know this game really puts the Switch to its limit.
Absolutely.
When I was at Trios and I've seen plenty of streams of the game, I've seen this game chug.
When explosions and
Yeah.
a lot of enemies are on screen.
Yeah, a
absolutely.
lot of fire. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this game dips.
Yeah.
Did that kind of ruin anything for the game? Does that more just be like, yeah, the next Switch probably needs to be on its way before before Nintendo releases another really big first party IP?
I didn't find it to be interrupting my moment to moment. Like, I think it was pretty within acceptable ranges. Do I think it shouldn't be like that? Yes. And I kind of wish we would have had a new Switch by now.
Right.
At this point, how long has the Switch been around?
7 years,
Yeah, that's a while.
Yeah, I
6-7 years.
Right, because it came like 3 or
So I guess
4
8
years
years
after
would make
the
sense.
one in the PS4.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess like an 8-year cycle would make sense for the Switch. But overall, I didn't find it to be impacting my moment-to-moment gameplay. I did notice it, though.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't feel like it was that much of a big deal, especially
I mean,
nowadays when it comes to games. I feel like if if studios are in a rush, they're going to release it anyway and just do patches. Like I feel like they
Sure.
can just go
And
with that.
I hate-
but you know this. Nintendo is not the company to do that.
I didn't
I feel like they really wait until their games are as
done,
perfect
yeah.
as possible and done.
I would agree. And
True.
Again, I don't know if there's anything here that they can necessarily patch, or it's just like it's just the console showing its age.
Exactly.
I think
There's
it's
nothing
I
they
think
can
it's
do.
optimized as well as it can be in almost some respects. Maybe it can be better. Maybe it can be smoother.
I mean, especially trying like I have the original Switch; it can still run on there.
Same.
Like,
Yeah, I have the
that's pretty
original
much
too.
what they were probably trying to go with, like not
And even the
exclusive
new
to a
one-
certain
So there's
types.
the Switch, the
And then the
Switch
LED.
Lite, and then the OLED.
Yeah.
Which like the LED, it doesn't have that much power. It just screen
just-
resolution
it's just
wise. It's better.
resolution.
So goofy.
It is. It's very goofy.
Like you think like that OLED model would have been like a
big step
like
up.
the PS Pro, or like the Xbox Series X, which I kind of like, isn't going to be getting that like that skew before the next generation. Like they're not going in that direction, which I don't mind. But when the Switch is really like hobbling
get that
on
new
one
PS5
leg,
soon, yeah.
it's like what do you do?
And when
I don't know. I wouldn't classify this as hobbling yet.
Okay,
though.
it's not.
At
We're
least-
not that badly
yeah.
crippled.
not yet.
it could get there.
You stepped on a Lego.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it hurts.
it hurts.
Yeah, you're limping a bit.
And, and comparing it to back when I played Breath of the Wild, like I used to do the whole switch, dock it, switch it, do it handheld. I haven't been doing that lately. I've just been using a Pro controller only because my Joy-Cons need to go in for repair.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we bring this up just like we talk about any game's performance, but I think that's been a theme of the year. A lot of like Final Fantasy 16 has performance
Yeah.
issues.
Does it?
Yeah, it like I play it in frame. The fidelity mode is so inconsistent that especially in combat,
Yeah.
there's really no point to. I don't think putting it on fidelity. I'm like, I'd rather the frames be as high as possible because that combat is so frenetic and fast. You kind of want the frames on.
I genuinely think it's like the general mass just doesn't care enough now. Like I think the majority of players are like not care enough. I think companies are unfortunately selling enough to where they can release games that are
It's not their main priority.
but
They're
they're
working.
working enough to like that.
It
they don't-
works.
It's not like a cyberpunk last generation situation,
Right.
but they're enough that I think their general purchaser is like, all right, I'm not really noticing this because I think there's some insane statistic about how many people play on fidelity versus frame rate, like or performance. I think they talked about it on Sacred Symbols. I don't know how accurate it is, but it was like something like 70 to 30, like 70% of people are on
70
fidelity.
infidelity.
Yeah,
mean,
and
they're-
like most people aren't really like, I guess maybe looking for that technical. I wish they were, and I'd hope companies would get better. I think overall though, like this one is not on that list of like terribly running games that came out this year, at least from my experience with it.
For me, there has to be a really, really big contrast. I think back to the days when we used to play Guitar Hero 3, how the difference was on your Xbox and my Wii, just how the avatars
Yeah,
work.
that's actually a really good comparison.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people have said. I think it's it's a very dated game, but you're right. Like the Wii version of Guitar Hero,
It literally,
was, like,
literally looks like animatronics.
drastically different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
No,
can be-
absolutely.
Yeah, and just because like the power of that console. Yeah, like there's I remember, yeah, that was like one of the things I was like, yeah, this looks like shit on the Wii. But I, just like every console Nintendo has put out, the graphics and frames are not their priority, and they never have been. I don't think they ever will, which is fine.
Supposedly the next one's going to be like the PS4 generation.
Yeah, I don't think they really try to
power, right?
focus
Like,
on
I think
trying
that's
to go
genuinely what like
current
that's what-
gen, you know?
yeah.
That's wild. But I mean, I think everyone is just fucking snobs about this shit nowadays, and that's the issue.
I think there's definitely an element to that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Like we're just
I don't know. I
it's
think
got to be running at fucking 60 frames, flawless.
I don't know. Like I think
We artistic. We gotta see the stuff just completely as it should be. Otherwise,
absolutely.
no.
match performance. Yeah,
And I get like getting that
kinda
on a
toxic.
computer. I think
Very
that there's
toxic.
a reasonable line to go to with having that expectation. But I don't know. I brought it up on that review. But the Star Wars discourse I thought was very like with Jedi Survivor. Like people were talking as if you couldn't play that game.
Right, that wasn't a frame issue.
God.
That was
just
like
a-
you'd have some
like-
clips, but like
crashing.
I
Yeah.
didn't really find 90% of the time.
No
that
crashing in Tears of the Kingdom.
No.
And does Switch? Does that happen with Switch games?
Not
don't
that I've
think so.
noticed terribly.
Okay.
Again, I don't play it that often.
It happened to me once with a downloaded retro game, but I don't think that really is a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I can count that.
Yeah, but I do think I think the 60 frames thing is a reasonable expectation to some degree. At least I thought it was at this point. For certain consoles, obviously that's not going to happen on a Switch. So I get that, but I do agree with you. I think that's a major element of it. But overall, I think it ran as well as it could.
Before we get into the story, I did want to talk about the characters because I know there are a bunch of like companions, and a lot of characters return, like Pura.
A lot of characters return. They've gotten older. Times passed, and that's
15 years, right?
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I really don't know. I didn't even know there was really a time jump.
There is
I would have assumed a year.
Yeah,
really, like,
I
or
would
two.
assume that too.
I thought I read like 15 years have passed.
I have no idea.
Anyways, continue. I'll look it up.
Definitely when it comes to the story elements, when it comes to that, you're pretty much you're trying to find these main sources of just chaos going around on the different portions of Hyrule. It's all the big settlements that you went to in the past, like the Zora's Domain and the Rito Village.
Right, so all those races from Breath of the Wild are returning.
And for that, you're going to be going into discovering a sort of temple that connects them. Like for the Rito Village, you have the Wind Temple, which is this giant arc just flying in the sky.
When I was at Trios, I saw
that whole temple,
whole section. So, what was her name?
Tulin.
Tulin,
You know what was really interesting to me, though? What would you assume the 4 elements, like the 4 sages were?
Earth, wind, fire, lightning?
Water.
It's
no, I would
always
have
changing.
assumed it would have been earth, wind, fire, and water. But then they're like earth, wind, fire, lightning.
You can't really with.
Oh, I got it right.
No, you were right. Yeah. I just would not have expected lightning. I don't know why.
You can't really with Zelda games like
Weird.
So there's no water temple.
No,
there is.
No, there. There's. So what are the 4? What am I?
There
what are we
is a
missing?
temple
Then?
underwater, but it's not the water.
It's not
temple.
underwater though.
Yeah, it's up in the sky.
It's always different. Like
there's the water, wind, fire,
and lightning.
And then so what am I missing? What's the 4 elements in Avatar? That's because
Earth, wind, fire, water.
So then we do have all 5,
are you
I guess.
confused
I'm confusing myself here. Jesus Christ. Anyways, continue.
I mean, when it comes to Zelda, like back in Ocarina of Time, when the Sage concept really first started, you had light, forest, fire.
So that
water,
has been a concept
spirit,
throughout many of these
shadow.
games?
Yeah, like
Okay, I didn't know that.
the whole Sage idea has been around for a while now. It's either you try and rescue them, awaken them, that sort of thing. Usually awakening, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, you actually have them with you, and they're actually fighting with you, compared to say Wind Waker, where you have to pretty much protect them.
But
from
they're
anything.
like, you kind of like channel their abilities, right? Like
They give you their
not
avatar.
yet. After you beat the temple.
Yeah.
Right,
So once,
right.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so I know Tulin. Who are our other characters for each thing?
You got Sidon, who is pretty much the prince of the Zoras. He's
in the first. He's in Breath of the Wild, right? Yeah. Okay, I remember him.
He has a dolphin head.
Everyone thinks he's hot. Yeah.
Yeah. And he wears like French armor. It's a very interesting aesthetic for many of these
You
people.
have Udo, who's this Goron, who was a descendant of like Goron sort of heroes, and
So he's new.
no, he was in the first one. It took me
Okay.
a while to actually recognize
Interesting.
all of the characters except for the Zonai, which we can talk about later, are pretty much are returning characters, returning
Oh, okay.
species.
Right. Yeah. And I know. Yeah. So
Like back in Breath of the Wild, Tulin was just a little thing. Now he's
Oh,
grown.
okay. I thought
That's
Tulin,
so funny. I didn't know that,
I thought
actually.
Tulin was like the kid of like another Rito.
So what I've discovered online, they're saying roughly 5 to 6 years is the consensus.
Okay.
5-6 years.
But I know Pura is like a little like she travels back in time,
And
right?
she's this major scientist. She found a way to pretty much de-age herself. You see her like really tiny in Breath of the Wild.
That's her?
And then
I feel like such an idiot.
and then
You're teasing.
I even know that.
and then when you see her, she's fully grown again.
Yeah.
Man,
And
she
everyone
shrunk a
thinks,
lot
Everyone
in her
thinks
age.
she's hot too.
Yeah, she's pretty hot.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah, so you kind of have this whole side. You
Hyrule
have the
Waifu
old,
Wars.
the old, who's the old man scientist too? He's from the first one, right?
I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, there's
like,
the name. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the names didn't sink in for me. I know like what's going on for the most part.
you have returning
Like
characters.
Raru
Trio-
and Sona.
When we were playing, Trio was just skipping dialogue.
you
I'm like,
you
you're
have
fucking
Impa.
nuts,
You have
bro.
all those characters. And it's also really when it comes to
course
that,
Zelda.
Zelda, of course.
Yeah.
It comes to
Goes
that,
without
you're,
saying.
you're going to be focusing on like the main sort of quests that progress the story in certain directions. Like find the sages, awaken them, and gain their powers so their avatars will help you. Otherwise, when it comes to certain key moments, they themselves will appear.
And you're kind of like, I mean, now I'm getting into the story a little bit, so maybe we can like
Absolutely.
hike back a little bit.
Yeah.
This sort of situation happened in the past where
Raru
did
recruited
this-
all these sages to
Right.
face the Demon King, which I love. What a great
Yeah, right.
title.
So you're kind of, But Zelda was with him when he did that.
So yeah, that's what we missed at the beginning. Zelda gets sent back in time at that first thing.
She's known as the Sage of
Classically.
Time, pretty much.
Yeah,
Right.
And it's because she has a secret stone too, or did she get that in the past?
She got that. I think she got it from when she was looking around in the tomb. She
Right,
grabbed
right,
it
okay.
and then was sent back.
Yes. So we learned throughout the whole game, throughout the tiers that we find.
That's another big quest. You have to go around, find these huge glyphs that are on the map. These big, sort of discoloration,
crop circle
yellow
almost
crop
looking
circles.
and that's where you're getting the flashbacks.
Those
to
flashbacks,
Naru.
that we watched, and
Right.
you're finding out what happened to Zelda and what she went through back in the time, and basically seeing the events of the what's it called war again,
The imprisoning war.
The imprisoning
So pretty-
war.
Imprisoning war.
which technically is an event that is from the past, but this is a whole different imprisoning war.
Yeah, because her
Okay.
going back in time causes this imprisoning war, right? That's like it's almost
So
a loop. There's a loop
starts
here.
like
There's
it's a time loop.
I was
Yeah,
like,
there's
does
a
she
time
start
loop here.
another timeline?
No,
No. So I think they're still in their current timeline.
this is an
I think.
inevitable time loop. Like she was meant to go back and go into the past.
Right, so
Eventually.
she's always been there.
Sure,
Yeah.
correct.
So,
Yeah,
it's kind of like Indiana Jones.
a little bit.
Dial
Yeah,
S,
I mean,
spoilers.
I mean, we've had time travel in plenty of other Zelda games. This is
my
the
favorite
first.
part of
This
it.
is the first time that it's going to be like she's stuck. There's no way back, like a quick way, like Link does in Ocarina of Time or Skyward Sword.
So most of the story, most of the main story of the game, you're kind of just piecing this all together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so that whole thing you can do, like, so there's a glyph per area, and I found them actually very easy to find
Yeah.
compared to especially the picture locations in the first game.
You got to find like the tier spots, like these big puddles that are within the glyph, and then you will literally see what was going on. Certain
I
flashbacks.
showed you a couple of the
So,
flashbacks.
so is Ganon fucking with you through this whole part, or is he really just kind of?
He's at the
end?
castle.
He's at the
and
castle.
the Hyrule Castle.
The Hyrule Castle, and basically for this first
Well,
I don't know how
Ganon-
you went through it.
Oh,
but
Ganondorf, but yeah.
Ganondorf, yeah. So what? So
Okay.
that's different. Ganon and Ganondorf are different.
Yeah, Ganondorf is the original man. Ganon is the monster that he usually turns into, like the pig monster.
Okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so it's Ganondorf.
Ganondorf. He was basically trapped in time by Raru in the past, and you
Right.
guys awaken him when you get there. And he's in the castle the whole time. And the first thing you have to do is find the sages. You gather them all up, and then at least I went to the castle. And then I thought, I don't know how. I assume you might be able to do this a different way because I missed the whole main quest,
I mean, I accidentally discovered there's a fifth sage.
Yeah.
I discovered that by accident.
which is cool. I didn't know that. So you get to the castle and you face you find out that this Zelda that you've been trying to find throughout
Zelda's
the
pretty
game-
much appearing all throughout Hyrule, giving people like certain sorts of ideas, stuff like that. You see her image when it comes to
Like
certain
in
main
the
quests.
past or in the
No,
present?
in the
present.
present. It's happening now. So
Like
you're
see-
seeing her
You see her just suddenly appear and reappear. It turns
in
out
places, and people are like, "I've talked to her," and
that's an imposter. It's Phantom Ganon.
yeah. And you get to the castle and you battle Phantom Ganon, and you beat him, but then Ganondorf runs off, and all the sages come to help you, and then you find out you're like, "What's going?" Like he ran off, so there's something going on, and then that's how I found out about the fifth sage.
Yeah, the fifth sage is a whole different concept. Literally, you have to go down into the depths. You have to
really
put
cool, actually.
Not optional. Have to do it.
No, it's a main quest.
Okay.
That I completely missed.
you have to go down there. You have to mess with a construct factory and make her body. It's Minaru, who's pretty much Raru's sister.
Back from the past that you learn about through Zelda's visions and stuff. She was the Sage of Spirit, right?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember. She's his own eye as
Yeah.
well, obviously, right?
Correct. And yeah, so you have to get her secret stone, which then she goes to tell you about. Once you do that, she tells you about the Master Sword that you need,
If you haven't already got
So
it.
there's
which I
another,
hadn't already gotten.
So there's
yeah.
another version of the Master Sword.
No.
No.
At the beginning, the Master Sword gets destroyed.
Yeah.
It gets destroyed, and then it gets sent back in time to Zelda. So,
So
And
the broken blade.
It's
Yes.
it's like all corrupted, and you
So
find out through Zelda's tears.
well, let me say
yeah,
this
sure,
first.
sure.
When you find out the Master Sword is still around, like I found out where it is from the Deku Tree from helping him out. You find out that it's on top of this dragon that's been flying around the Hyrule skies. This is a new dragon compared to the 3 dragons from the first game. It's called the Light Dragon.
So the blade is stuck in his back or something.
Stuck in its head. You literally have to pull it out. Eventually, you can get the Master Sword very easily,
So,
actually.
so Zelda put it there. Is that what I'm?
Well,
actually,
we're
that's the
about to
interesting
get
thing.
into it.
So-
The thing is,
you would think so.
Well-
Well, actually, it's not. You're not technically incorrect. Throughout those glyphs that you find, you're piecing together what Zelda did in the past, and you realize that like you see Ganon kind of work all his trickery ways. You see him murder Sona.
he steals her secret stone and
And that's
uses
how
it
he
to get
becomes, like, the
powerful.
Demon
That's
King.
where the blood moon comes from, apparently.
and basically the secret stones will like enhance a person's power. So he was a mage already, right? Is the idea? He was already a powerful sorcerer.
Each sage gets one, and it helps increase their power. Like, she goes to every single sage after the whole issue with Ganondorf is sealed away, and asks the sages of that time to like, when it's time for new sages to come, let them serve Link. Like,
Ganondorf will return. When that happens, the sages of that time must come and stand with Link.
Right.
And so we are going through all that, and we find out that through what's her name again? Mira, that if you Minaru, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got you.
It's really tough. If you ingest a secret stone,
you become a dragon.
You become a dragon, and you can imbue, and you lose yourself, and you transfer power.
But you will be immortal.
You will be immortal, and that would allow a person to transfer energy into the sword. The sword to make it powerful enough to defeat Ganondorf.
So Zelda became the light dragon.
That's flying, and she's been dropping the tears. Her tears have been around that you have been re-experiencing.
Oh, wow.
She became a dragon. She lost all of her sense of self. She had the Master Sword, and she pretty much has just flying around, not even remembering who she is.
Just imbuing it with power throughout the 1,000 years that she's been.
Just so she can make her way back to the present.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you find that out. So it's funny. I knew that wasn't Zelda by the time I got to the castle, because I had already done all the tiers. I'm like, well, Zelda's flying around. She's the dragon.
Yeah, so I suspected the dragon something about it, like its description in the continuum, all that sort of stuff. Like,
it's very interesting.
Something I
should have read more of the continuum stuff.
Is that like the codex?
Yeah,
like the bestiary, all that type of stuff.
Right.
But so yeah, that's again a lot of the story can be pieced together in many different in so many different.
So
orders.
it's not linear.
It doesn't have to be in a particular order.
Yeah.
Like, when you think of classic Zelda games, it's usually you have to go to this place, then that place. Like, when it comes to the new sort of, you can go anywhere first. That first started in Link Between Worlds, and now it's become a thing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You can do whatever order you want.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like that's like with like Elden Ring, and when you're talking about games and what you did first, and you talked to like 3 different people, and none of you did the same thing in the same order. That's usually pretty cool. I feel like that makes for just like better conversation.
And even the way
I did this.
The game.
Well, I did this.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I found that aspect very interesting, and the whole thing that Ganondorf goes through in the past, he tries to kind of trick Rauru into being like, I'm actually cool, I'll work with you guys. After he tries to attack the first time.
It's literally just like Ocarina of Time. He feigns loyalty, and then he betrays.
And he kills Sonia, and takes her secret stone.
That's how he gets powerful, becomes Demon
So is
King.
Ganondorf the secret sage?
He's not a sage.
No,
he sold a secret stone. He uses it.
Right.
He is not the fifth sage was Minaru. Which her spirit, you had to basically create a construct body for her to inhabit.
Which, by the way, constructs are pretty much the replacement for guardians. They're these like metallic sort of golems. You fight them. You have to do all this sort of stuff when it comes to facing them. It's pretty much the Zonai tech replacing Sheikah tech from Breath of the Wild.
Is Minaru the same thing as Midna?
No.
No. Isn't there? Don't they talk the same?
There's no such Twilight.
Okay, because like I remember when that trailer first came out, isn't there a character who talks kind of like Midna, like the backwards talk thing?
You may be thinking of Fi.
Yes, I think I do. Yeah, from Skyward Sword, right?
Yeah.
But there's no character in this game, because I could have sworn I remember like watching a trailer. I'm like, oh shit, are they like they looks like Midna?
I do want to talk though really quick about when Minaru, like, she gives you your flashback, which is interesting because she kind of explains everything that you find out in the flashbacks again, which I found a bit redundant. But I guess
it
that's
probably
because
depends
you
on the
couldn't have
order you go.
Exactly. So like,
I remember this from 70 hours ago.
Exactly. So I found that interesting. But then she kind of shows the last moment of Rauru like imprisoning
Actually
Ganondorf,
imprisoning.
and it's fucking awesome. Like the way he like distracts him, and then he just like fucking does a soul punch into his body, and it just freezes them in place. And he tells him about Link, and he's like, "Remember this name." He's like, "I can't wait to meet him."
And that's how.
And that's the imprison. And it was very good. I almost like. I know the ending was very epic, but I almost liked how like personal
how it builds
that
up.
was.
Like
yeah.
So is Zelda just trapped as a dragon? Do you like?
Well, by the end, that's
we'll
resolved.
get to that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
let me just tangent a second there and to go back to the whole Avatar system. One thing that was a big complaint when it came to Breath of the Wild was the idea that there was no sort of companion. Like, everyone thinks of some sort of companion, whether they like them or they get annoyed by them, like Navi or Fi. But now you actually have a companion that has to be there. Unlike in Breath of the Wild, the only companion you have is with Wolf Amiibo.
Yeah, so you have these 4 avatars, which I will admit that mechanic, it's not very well thought out. I don't like how you use all of them. So they're all around you at once, and each of them has a power. Like the electric one, it creates like a bubble that if you shoot anything,
Shoot an
in that
arrow,
bubble,
it'll strike.
It'll strike lightning. The rock one, I can't.
You pretty much he'll go into a ball and you like
launch a cannonball of
roll
fire
him
at
down.
people.
He can like hit certain types of objects that bombs can't hit, that sort of thing.
Water one will give you a water slash or a water shield.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, the avatars definitely could have had more powers to them, but I do feel like it was good that they were able to turn them on, turn them off.
Oh, you could?
Yeah,
How could you do that?
in the main menu.
Because that's what annoyed me. They're always around you at all times, and like you're just trying to pick up things
visually.
and,
Yeah,
visually.
you
and
got an
with
entire crew.
And the way you activate their powers is you press A on them. And
When they're close
and
enough
when
to
they're
you.
close to you,
And
so
they can
like
get kind
you're
of
trying
clustered.
to pick up something,
Right,
and you'll click them by accident,
Right.
and they're all just kind of around you. I just think there was a better way to activate their powers, like I don't know, to button map it in a certain
like
way
to
or
switch
something
through a
like
menu
that.
or something like that.
It just really was getting annoying, especially when you have all 4 around you. So what do you do when you turn it off? It just turns them off completely.
Like they just disappear, like they turn off pretty much.
But then you have to go back into the menu to turn them back on.
Yeah.
See,
So-
that's annoying. Like
yeah,
that's
isn't it
It would
vital
be
to the
nice if
gameplay?
you- so-
why would there even be a thing to turn it off?
And I guess like when you're exploring, like that would be nice, but at the same time, I'd like a way to easily like call them
Summon
back
them,
in,
yeah.
summon them,
Yeah,
and,
that
and
seems
turn
like
them off.
that
at
seems
one
like an
point.
interface issue.
It really does.
Because like the fact that they have a toggle to switch a main gameplay mechanic off because it's annoying seems like an issue from the UI.
You would think that
perspective.
there would be a way to do that just from the
Right, your
controller,
normal
that you
menu.
wouldn't have to go
Right.
into like the menu and do that.
I mean, thinking about it, it brings up Ocarina of Time's most infamous temple, the Water Temple, how you would have to go to the pause menu, put on the iron boots, etc., over and over again. That's pretty much the exact same scenario.
Yeah, like in
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16, you have these icons you can switch through, and they're basically like elemental powers as well. And all you do is hit right trigger, and you can only have 3.
Yeah, that's
equipped.
better.
And it's just like they just like you see like your icon on the top of the scene switch, and there's like an effect on Clive, and yeah, it's obvious that you're switching, and it's easy, and it doesn't disrupt
this is
gameplay
not
at
done
all.
well.
That's
Sad. Because like you're in the middle of a battle, and I'm like, I want the lightning
So, like,
guy, but he's all the way over there.
in terms of gameplay, like is gameplay really something Nintendo like really stands out for? It's like I would say no, right?
It's not in a way of like I mean
Like
the
any
game,
Nintendo game.
the combat's fine.
Combat
It's
is
not
fun.
something to write home about.
Right,
though.
you're not like it's game of the year.
You're
because of
really
the
more
combat.
for the exploration and the temples and stuff like that.
They haven't
and
gone
and
through it
puzzles.
like they've gone through story, they've gone through main combat, they've gone through puzzles. They haven't really gone to minor tweaks, sort of thing.
Well, not even
Right,
mine.
to
Like
really
I don't even
tighten
feel
up gameplay.
in the way like combat. It's different mechanically in the way of how you combine things and add things to your arrows. But other than that, it's the exact same combat. And like the way you
I
actually
think-
fight and how you dodge.
I
and
think
how
sometimes that is disappointing with a sequel. It's like it's the fucking like Horizon. It's the fucking same thing, except there's like too many weapons in Horizon.
See, I was gonna
There's
say, I
just
think
too much going on.
if your combat's great, you shouldn't change it. But if your combat's like just fine, yeah, you should want
You
to
need to
improve on
innovate
it.
it
Like
a little
I
bit.
think there are certain
What didn't
games where
work?
it's like
what yeah.
like how much are you going to improve on like an Elden Ring style combat in the way of like how
mean,
how
not
crazily are
much.
you get that's what I mean. So like and that's
Yeah.
because it's good.
Right.
And not that I think Zelda is it works. Should
It
I
works,
say.
sure.
It works. And I do think that
you can make it better, but it definitely
Like
works.
Bloodborne really.
so maybe what you're telling me is that could be improved even like this. So
Right, like,
I don't even know,
like not like Bloodborne really added a different mechanic to Souls combat with the trick weapons, adding this like
yeah, that was cool.
this like, but like they didn't bring that back. I mean, some weapons do have things like that, but not every weapon. And I think like Souls combat has ultimately stayed the same. Even the magic I think has gotten a lot better, but like I think the melee combat is more or less the same.
Same, yeah.
Tweaks here and there, maybe
makes
some
sense.
speed ups. Like Dark Souls 2 is really slow, but like 3 and everything onward is like much faster.
Sure, yeah.
So back to the story.
So once you complete everything, you pretty much get all the sages together, including Minoru. You eventually will go down into the depths yourself and try and make your way into the castle's depths, which is like this super gauntlet. You got so many tough enemies down there. You got Lionels, you got all these Lisbos, you got all this sort of stuff, like this tough stuff.
Lisbos. It's funny hearing these actually said out loud because you just read them. Like you're like, oh,
you fight that.
Lafalos or
You fight that Lisbo, bro.
Yeah.
Gliok.
Leox, yeah. Like, oh Jesus Christ. Yeah. Shit hits the fan.
And that's the thing too. When it comes to that area, you do not have any sort of teleportation place, but that's one of the new mechanics. You can have at least 3 teleporters that you can place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking maybe about the thing where you teleport above ground, which I think is very cool.
Yeah, so that's one of the one of the new powers that I don't think we missed.
Ascend.
Yeah,
We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, which is it's
It really
nice
just
to
feels
just
like
get you
cheating. Yeah.
That was
but-
originally just a mechanic from the developers. We're messing
I think
around
I
with.
said that. Yeah, it was just how they'd get out of things, but. It is interesting because I think you can, again, it allows you to break. I just appreciate that they don't care.
Break barriers.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know what? We thought that you will break this.
We're not
going to
make
accounted
you
for it.
Go
And,
back.
Yeah,
or
and
like even shortcut it.
dude,
Just
there was
fucking
one.
teleport out.
There was one I was doing. Oh, which it was the lightning temple. There's one thing that you have to strike 4 batteries with the lightning, and the one all the way at the top of the temple, you have to like direct light to get it and open it up. I didn't do that. I used the ascend and I just went through the ground underneath it. And then I went back and I did it by accident because I'm like, oh, what's this for? And it opened up the area I was already in, and I was like, God damn it! I just wasted 20 minutes on this. Oh man, but it is interesting how they really allow you to do that. What else was I gonna say? I lost it.
We were talking about the story.
You go down to the depths,
depths,
you
yeah.
eventually run into Ganondorf himself. He completely rejuvenates himself. You actually fight him in regular combat. Like, you fight him as if you're fighting yourself. Like, similar to the Dark Link sort of fight in Ocarina of Time. He does everything like...
So he's like a normal human being, no powers.
He changes weapons, he shoots, he can even do the jump dodge.
Okay,
and flurry
so
rush.
you're doppelganger. Yeah. Where you're fighting a version of yourself. Yeah, that's always
And that's
interesting.
by yourself, too.
I should say really quick on Minoru, you can use her like a mech.
Literally, you can
Yeah,
just
she's like
walk
a mech.
in.
Like you get in her and like you attach weapons to
You
her.
can
and
attach
things
weapons,
like that.
stuff like that.
Gooch wants to get in her.
I don't even know what she looks like.
She's just a weird robot, to be honest. It's cool, but I thought that was a really cool mechanic that they introduced. But yeah, you're fighting Ganon.
Eventually, he powers up. He becomes the Demon King version, and you get help from the sages that come to help you. Eventually, it escalates to a much harder battle. You have to deal with constantly losing hearts due to your gloom.
Yeah.
Which, yes, you do repeat the same process as Breath of the Wild, and you do go to shrines in order to refill that and the stamina wheel. Mm-hmm. Eventually, it turns into he loses it. He doesn't want to get beat. He swallows his stone, and he becomes a dragon too.
And that's
then
the last fight.
And then you ride Zelda
Yeah,
and beat him.
she comes to the sky.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
She comes into the sky, she helps you, she keeps you from going all the way to the ground, and you're pretty much... I do feel it was kind of lacking. It's pretty much you have to find these
you
points
just-
and then
just
shoot them.
I will say they're big. I don't like these large battles in these games that much. There
I
was
thought
another one
the
in the
fight in the Wind Temple was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it was. I will say
You know,
that
it's
one
1,
didn't
2,
overstay
3,
its.
it's not...
It's not overstaying its welcome. I
Right,
would agree
right.
with
And
that.
it was unique, too. Like, it didn't require the sword whatsoever. It was all archery, that sort of thing.
And then you eventually.
Like usual
yeah.
with Ganondorf, you get him in the head with the Master Sword.
And you destroy
classic,
him.
right?
Yeah, and then Rauru and Sonia shows up.
They appear as spirits. They pretty much see Zelda as the dragon form. They use their powers to change her back, as
yeah.
well as
Link!
as well
I've
as,
returned!
as well as restore Link's arm. You pretty
Yeah.
much
He doesn't have those creepy nails anymore.
the last portion is you literally dive bomb down to get Zelda before she hits the surface.
Right, so
Catch her,
they do
yeah.
the hand thing
Yeah.
like they do at the beginning of the game.
And then Link, is this a dream? And
Is it really you?
yeah, and Ganon's dead, and
Eventually, the sages they all meet up at the original place, the tutorial area,
Yeah.
where they see Minoru off as she departs, that sort of thing.
Okay.
yeah, like in Lord of the Rings when they travel to the west.
Right, to the Undying Lands.
Correct.
Yeah. And
But
that's it.
And that's
That's it.
that's it.
So there's no...
Again, there's
no
really, I will say
allusion
they
to
really
anything
no, and I
after.
will say they really like I know
Seems
what's
clean.
happening when it's coming in. Like I don't feel like they surprise. Like they do a good job of laying out. Like I know where Zelda is. She's the dragon. I know what happened with the sword. I know the story of
I
the
kind of
imprisoning
expected it
war.
to be a little more complex for some reason.
No, yeah, I
think
kind
it's-
of welcomed the bit of the simplicity. To be honest,
Sure, it's sometimes a welcome. I
Yeah.
don't need every story to be fucking Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is going to be some sort of DLC. That happened with Breath of the Wild.
There was a lot of DLC
did not
for
see
Breath
that
of the
coming.
Wild.
Yeah.
Right? There was like...
There were two.
Oh.
There was, yeah, and one of them was only like a challenge. Were they both challenge
It was
things?
this big challenge
You got a
thing.
motorcycle, don't you?
Yeah, this big challenge thing where you pretty much had to make your way to this secret dungeon, fight the super boss, and then get sort of rewards.
Do you think they're gonna do DLC? What do you
I wouldn't be
think?
surprised if they did.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Overall, the story was really good, and I do appreciate how. I don't think it was overly simple. I think they have a lot of layers that are
Like an
easy to
onion?
comprehend, like an ogre.
Yeah. No,
And I think they're very easy to understand, but not overly easy and just simple and stupid. Like
Right.
I just enjoyed the story a lot. It
And
felt
you
like a
don't-
classic Zelda story for sure.
You don't really even need to know classic Zelda lore for it.
No, you don't.
I feel like Breath of the Wild and Tears
I
of the
completely
Kingdom
was
have
following what
really
was
been
going
trying
on,
to
yeah.
just like not go as dedicated. There's no Triforce. There's nothing like that. They don't.
Yeah,
do
it is interesting.
No
they really
Triforce
don't. I
at
mean,
all.
you see it like it's like its insignias everywhere.
right. It's like
But-
on architecture.
And there is a moment in the desert where it's almost, you almost kind of see a Triforce. It's not really, but it's like when
Yeah.
those three temples like connect to create the lightning
It
temple.
literally just redo of what they did in Wind Waker.
Yeah.
So Chris, where do you think this is in the timeline? Do you think this is like before Skyward Sword?
When it comes to actually Breath of the Wild era, definitely not. But I would say when it comes to like Raru's time, that would be more like sometime after, because after Skyward Sword, that's when the kingdom was starting to get really established. Like
Okay.
that's pretty much the whole thing. They defeated Demise. They're trying to make a new land now that they're back on the surface. And next thing you know, the Zonai come and are trying to help. So I would say that definitely helps when it comes to the sort of establishment. But Zonai themselves, it's usually not them that are royal family. It's the Hylians because they have Hylia's blood.
Right.
Zelda's literally a reincarnation of a goddess.
Right. Yeah.
Well, but she is also. So would that mean Sonya is, because she's a descendant of Sonya and Rauru?
It could potentially be that way.
Like that would just make sense. Like
So the
linearly.
Hylians, or the Hylians,
The Zonai
I
exist
want
in
to say
other games.
devolved from.
They were
Zonai.
only showed once in Breath of the Wild. They're pretty much
Oh.
barely really know.
Oh, okay. So that was the first time.
And
they
you
appeared.
think this is a totally different timeline,
It could definitely
branching
be.
off of, but like not branching off of anything.
I mean, so many different theories. I've watched so many different theorists when it comes to this series. Like, this is probably the most dedicated fan base when it comes to a Nintendo game. Like, trying to make so much theories about
Right.
temples, items, certain events, all this sort of stuff. And it's hard to say, really. Some people will say that it's a reunifier of the three timelines, which wouldn't make sense for the adult.
So like at the end. So like they branch out from Ocarina of Time and then they come back to merge like at the bottom.
yeah, but
That's what they're saying,
That wouldn't make
yeah.
sense.
Right. I'm like, I don't think that makes sense, and from my limited knowledge of it.
Yeah, it wouldn't make
Interesting.
sense because old Hyrule was flooded in the adult timeline, so that definitely couldn't happen.
So Ganondorf, do you get a lot of his story in the other games, like his backstory? Is he a Gerudo? Is it the same idea?
Ganondorf is always a Gerudo. He is the result of a curse placed on the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero by Demise, his original version.
Oh, okay.
So is that like its highest god form or something?
He's like a dark god, pretty
Because
much.
because in this game they say he was like the first male Gerudo born in a wild. Like that seems to happen.
That's
right?
that's their thing.
Yeah.
If the Gerudo, they're like Amazons. They
Yeah.
always have females. If ever a single male is born, he has to be their king, and it's always Ganondorf.
Got it.
So
Okay.
that girl in Ocarina of Time that does that orgasm noise is a Gerudo, right? Does she look?
You know, like they
that's
have
a
the
great
big noses.
that's a great fairy.
They have big.
Yeah, they have a big nose. No, she's a big nose.
No,
doesn't
great.
she?
The great fairies are just great fairies.
Oh, you're
Oh,
talking
okay.
about the twins, the Twin Rova.
I don't know. I know there's a character that's a female with a big nose.
So yeah, again, I thought his backstory was very comprehensible. I was like, I get it. Anyways,
Anyway.
I mean, the
that's
whole
okay.
this really changes it a lot because if it is that this Ganondorf was around when Hyrule first started, this would technically be the first Ganondorf. Meanwhile, it originally was Ocarina of Time was the first Ganondorf. And the thing about that character is that he's only ever been reincarnated like once or twice. So when it comes to all these other games, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, they're all the same
see.
Ganondorf,
okay, okay,
including his Ganon form.
interesting.
Well, anything else we want to say on Tears of the Kingdom? Or
I
is
think
that-
we really
does
about
that-
covered it.
Does that cut it?
Do we want? I mean, the shrines were fun.
Shrines were
I think
fun.
we
And
kind of
they
talked about
return,
them.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know a lot about
You have
that.
to find them, all that sort of stuff. I
That
feel like
fucking
Same
noise.
mechanic of getting all your hearts, like you said, and stamina back.
From Breath of the Wild, that like that music. It's got like a noise, like a
Da-na-na-na-na. Like what, when you get it?
like it's like I remember from Breath of the Wild hearing it all the time. Like this is such an annoying sound.
Well, especially, it's funny, I found the Great Fairy late, so I was like upgrading all of these things, so it just kept da-na-na-na, like as over and over.
Yeah.
Na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na. I'm like, I get it. All right, I get it. I'm upgrading the weapon or whatever. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think that's it, guys. Anything else?
And one thing I will say also, it's interesting they brought back the amiibos. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. So what do they do?
Amiibo-
What is that? Like,
what does
I
he
know
do?
that you can use them on different games, like and stuff like that.
Well,
but-
in Breath of the Wild, the amiibos, when you touch them onto the pad once a day, you would get like a supply sort of haul. You'd get a bunch of certain types of, like, say if you had the Wind Waker one, you get
Yeah.
a bunch of fish, and you'd have a treasure chest. In that chest, you would sometimes get just regular items, or you would get exclusive armor, like the Wind Waker stuff, or exclusive weapons, like the boomerang. Like with this one, this arrow one here, you probably get some arrows and stuff.
yeah.
One thing that is... Sorry.
No, you're good.
One thing that is definitely kind of a letdown is that they downgraded the Wolf Link one, which pretty much would have Wolf Link in there in Breath of the Wild. Now it's just another supply thing.
Oh, that's frustrating. But that's cool. I mean, how much are amiibos?
Depends on...
So they are like a collector's item, like as well. Yeah.
People fiend for amiibos.
Yeah, there's people that would burn amiibos because they didn't like the character.
I have a
Christ.
snake amiibo
Interesting.
at work.
I've been meaning to look
my
for that.
office.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you all so much for watching us live on twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network. If you've been with us, we really appreciate your time. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Just search Delco Nerd Network. We're on all your favorite social media platforms as well. We even got a new Threads going on, so we'd love to have a little follow from you over there. But we're at Delco Nerds basically on everything else. I guess we're at Delco Nerds on Threads too, right? Because it
Correct.
just transfers over.
From Instagram.
Yeah. Facebook page, Discord channel, all that good stuff will be linked down below. You can email us all your comments, questions, or concerns, delconerds@gmail.com. We'd be happy to get back to you. And you can find all this information on our website, delconerdnetwork.com. For Gooch, for Chris, I've been Trio. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay nerdy, and we will see you next time.